Great. So great to see all of you. Oop, thanks, Bradley. Yeah, I'm so excited for this session. It seems like one of the really key points of the last panel was that this education and social change element is so important. And that it's not just an obstacle, but I think in this panel we'll really see that it's an opportunity for some really unique kind of perspective changes to happen, and for some kind of creative opportunities. So I'm really glad that you're all here. And I think we're gonna have each person present, and then we'll do Q&A afterwards, after all of the presentations. So to kick us off today, we have the distinguished Shawn Shafner, the Puru, who is the head co-founder of the People's Own Organic Power Project, also known as POOP, creating the POOP Project, creating award-winning theater, film, podcasts, and educational events, catalyzing conversation about sustainable sanitation from the floor of the United Nations to the mountains of Rwanda. Shawn is also an accomplished theater artist, educator, and mindfulness coach devoted to manifesting a world of creativity, community, and joy. So take it away, Shawn.
Thank you, Julia. Let's hear it for Julia on this whole conference. Amazing. Can you see my screen? It took a little moment, but okay,
Yes.
you already
Yeah.
introduced me, so I won't do too much more of it. My name is Shawn Shafner. I'm founder of the Poop Project, and we're on a mission using arts, theater, and education to promote critical conversations about sustainable sanitation for the person, planet, world community. I also want to say thank you so much for having me here. I'm speaking to you from Piscataway and Nacotchtank lands of our indigenous peoples before this was Washington, D.C. And they're still here. So just a shout out to them and the shoulders upon which we all stand, and how I love this conference. And I apologize if you were like, why won't he stop chatting? It's because I'm so excited and I miss the social elements of this in person. So just a little bit of overview on the Poop Project, and then I encourage you, like, go to the website, find out more, email me later. Since 2010, I've been using interactive creative modalities to encourage conversation, curiosity, contemplation of what comes out of our colons. Some of the ways we've done that are through the main stage show, An Inconvenient Poop, 2015 Time Out New York Critics Pick, the podcast Shit and Shame with Shawn, which I'm excited to reboot starting this year, and the documentary film Flush, which I've talked about before on the chat and would love to share with everybody. There's also the keynote performance, How the Potty Trained Us. That's essentially a reboot of An Inconvenient Poop. I've been touring to colleges and universities across the country. A kids show with a worm puppet. This is an origami project that informs people about combined sewer overflows. This was a project I did in University of California, Santa Cruz, where I baked my body weight in mud cakes and then gave them back out to people a week later while sharing the story of the Buddha. And it was actually the enthusiastic response I got from this West Coast trip that encouraged me to launch a tour I called Assume the Throne, where I made a new show that I could do in people's living rooms. And I stayed with people all across the country, traveling in my poop mobile, doing 4.5 amazing months, touring 40 cities and towns, 15,000 miles, 30 engagements, including a lot of the people who have been through this conference in times past or currently. And it started with this map of all these different people I knew all around the country who I thought I could probably stay with. And the big takeaway that I want to share from this, I'm not going to talk too much more about the tour, was like, there's a community out there for us. There are people who love this work. And that was what I found in the West Coast, was like all these things I did were really well attended in a way that in New York City, I've really struggled to get people to come. And I thought, where are the people for whom this is a yes? And I want to go find those people, plant as many seeds and like water the yes garden and let the no garden go. Like, that's not where I think the work is. So I want to talk a little bit more about that opportunity we have to find those people and then raise up a big flag, send out videos, communications, whatever, to call people in to what we're doing here. Because for most people, this is where their education on sanitation stops, right? And this is a really successful story. People bought it, they bought in. And as Kim's book, All People Pee, will soon do, you know, it's really important to have a foundation. But for most people, this is where their education stopped, and it's where the conversation stopped. So our mind's architecture, the way we think about toilets, resembles the toilet space itself. It's probably down a hallway, you're closing the door, you have some idea about what's happening there, but not really what's going on. And so if we want people to adopt a different technology, we need to change the story. And that might look something like this, right? Where we're really exposing people to the people behind the P, N, and K, that there are real people there somewhere. And this particular message isn't necessarily a message every brand on this conference would feel comfortable putting out, and it's not for every person either. But I also think for those of us who do this work, it's easy to forget how unfamiliar it is to other people. Because we hear about urine diversion toilets and we're telling ourselves this story, right? About like crop bounty and all of that. We're telling ourselves a story about ecological justice. I think these things are real. I'm not saying they're not real, but most people think this, right? Or as Pauline brought up earlier, they think something like this. So how do we move away from that? And I think some of it is definitely through the technologies that are going to take us there. It's also through the regulatory frameworks so these systems can be installed. Thank you, Recode. And we need the research and the science that's going to make the case that these systems are better and that the other systems are worse. But we really need stories. It's really basic, I know, but it's the way we make meaning from the random events of our lives. It's how we contextualize and understand everything else. As Nigerian author Ben Okri says, a people are as healthy and confident as the stories they tell themselves. Sick storytellers can make nations sick, but stories can conquer fear, you know. They can make the heart larger. And what we're facing is a lot of fear, right? And a lot of like closed heart and mind about a new, innovative, potentially scary idea. But our current story, the story that's embedded in our current farming practices and in our flush toilet, they look really good. They're a good pitch, but it's like a happy cow behind a total agro messed up dairy system, right? It's telling us a story of bounty and purity, but it's really a lot more like this. So we need to expose the current systems for what it is and help people see the stories they don't know. And we need to help them see what we see in a different light. We need to educate and celebrate the golden wave of the future, help tell the stories that the science is doing so that people can get a visceral sense of it, and pique people's curiosity with things that might seem a little bit strange. This is hilarious, by the way. It's a kit to make struvite, but it's also like, as we all know, the fertilizer is coming right out of your body. You don't need a kit to make it. But this is like a cool idea, right? It's an art project, basically, that encourages people to open up. So again, this is a call out to get our stuff out there and to remember that design matters. Design is part of the story. All of these different toilets here tell a different story about the user and what the user is telling about themselves. Are they fancy? Are they utilitarian? Right? So as we build up the world of urine diversion, it's a diverse portfolio and there are different brands for different users. There are some people who are going to be cool with this, and we call them Vermonters, right? And there are some people who are even going to be cool with this, right? But there are others who, for various reasons, whether they're our own body's infrastructure or our psychological infrastructure, they're not going to join this party until they have something like this, or most people are going to want something like this. And I'm saying, let them have it. Let whoever wants to build the gorgeous, aspirational flush UD toilet for the person who needs that, let them do it, put that flag up and like make it big and bad. And also, the eco-sanitation as we currently know it, as it's much more being adopted on a user-by-user basis, those people are early adopters. They're weirdos a little bit, right? I think Pauline put this in a slightly better way, but I think eco-sanitation is for people who want to be edgy, radical, they're willing to do something radically different, they're ecologically minded, they're innovative leaders, right? Which is like the real positive side of how we describe that. So let's say yes to those people and get them in. And we, again, can lure them in with something exciting and then wham, bam, be like, also, while you're here for water conservation, urine diversion. Or while you're here for the good taste of vegetables, urine diversion, right? But there's also something about just saying yes. And last thing I'll go into is when I used to do these, I don't do them anymore. There would be like 4 kinds of people. There's the people who see what my stand is, and then they immediately walk away as if they'd never seen it. There's the people who see it, can't stop looking, but they slowly walk away with their bodies while their heads stay in. And then there are people who come up, politely ask, hear a sentence, and then leave immediately. And they're the people who make a beeline and they're like, what are you doing? I want to know. And those are the people who, at least for me, where my brand is, those are my people. And it's helpful when we gather in places like this and we see that our separate little stars are not individual stars, they're constellations in the gorgeous night sky. So let's help each other get these messages out there. And I'm a resource for all of us and happy to collaborate. So thank you so much.